Welcome to the Female Founder Unplugged podcast, a show for women entrepreneurs who want to build, grow, and lead successful businesses and high-performing teams. I'm your host, Lindsay White, leadership coach and people strategy expert, here to bring you unplugged conversations with a variety of amazing guests who share expert advice and real actionable people strategies for your growing business. Ready to get unplugged? Let's jump in. Welcome to Female Founder Unplugged, the podcast show that is all about having real, authentic conversations in a very unplugged way about all the things that we manage and struggle with and grapple with and actually find real amazing results as female entrepreneurs and small business owners. And I have with me today someone who is a dear friend, and we have worked together and stayed connected. I don't even want to talk about how many years, Jackie. But let me tell you a bit about my friend Jackie Ellison-Wickson. She has over 18 years of experience in talent acquisition, and she's worked with an incredible variety of industries: banking, transformation, insurance, brokerages. And now she's the director of talent acquisition for Canada at Hub International. And she is an exceptional talent acquisition professional, and her skill encompasses designing inclusive recruitment strategies, which we're going to talk about, successfully leading teams because she's an incredible leader. And she leads a team across Western Canada, which is a pretty broad area if you're familiar with the geography. And you know what I love about what Jackie does is it's innovative, it's unconventional, and it really does get the best talent. And that's, I think, what we're really thoughtful of, really aware of, and really trying to achieve in our small businesses. Jackie's also really active in participating in DEIC boards, promoting inclusivity, and really creating, spaces where candidates can experience belonging when they come to an organization. And that is something that Jackie and I have completely in common. Is we believe wholeheartedly in creating those incredible spaces and then finding the right people that fit in those spaces. Did I say that right, Jackie? You're nodding.
Yeah.
So this is
Yeah, absolutely. Well, welcome. Thank you for having me.
It's
It's a
my
pleasure.
pleasure. I'm excited to have you because you've had an interesting journey in your career. And I think, we were talking just before we hit record. Jackie's got so much experience. I have a background in recruitment, not nearly as much as she does, but it's a passion of mine. And so it's a topic we're going to like really jump into today and extract all of the genius that lives in Jackie's brain to help us really understand how we recruit the best talent for our small businesses. So, Jackie, tell us a little bit more about your background, how you got to be
Yeah,
where you're at today.
it's such an interesting journey because, as someone who loves the arts and acting and performance and, just, all of that pop culture stuff, as I do, I wanted to be an actress. So I had this dream as a child that I was going to be an actress and, move to New York and be on Broadway and all that stuff. And, life happens and that doesn't always line up the way you think. So I was a very young mother. And that really kind of made me not know my identity anymore. And so when I went, essentially back into the workplace, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And it was one person that changed my life, and she's very accomplished here in Calgary. She's a female entrepreneur named Sheila Musgrove, and she owns Tech Recruitment. And I remember being in front of her and having this experience of just this recruiting experience of a professional recruiter recruiting me for an organization. And it changed my life because in that moment, I saw I want to do that. I want to help people. I want to help change a life. And she changed my life in that moment because it got me into a professional sales environment. But I always had that in the back of my head that I wanted to do that. So, for me, without any formal real education at the time, it was to go into an agency. And I'm so, you know, thankful for that experience because, at the time, especially this is like 2006, 2007, the market in Calgary was hot. It was
Yeah.
hot.
Yeah.
So it was booming and people, there was shortages and you could have like basically a resume on a napkin and get a job in Calgary. And so it was really lucrative. And then I had my first recession as a recruiter in the agency space. And that was devastating because, people don't hire during those times. And so it was sort of feast or famine. And I went back into advertising. And then once the market picked up again, I went back into agency, worked for a couple real small mom and pop
Yeah.
operations that were very interesting, big life lessons. But then I went into the corporate world, around the 2011, 2012 timeframe. And honestly, that was when I got my calling.
Yeah.
Because I brought all of that hunger that you have in an agency to a corporate role. And that was sort of like, companies don't see that because I'm not traditional HR.
Yeah.
So I was looking and seeking for this talent like I was when I was at an agency, but bringing that culture and identity back to the company that I loved
Yeah.
and worked for. So, I've been doing that. And throughout the time, I've been able to get, designations and schooling under my belt, which again, as a full-time and single mother at the time was really challenging. But, I really needed that to really get that sort of, credibility, so to speak,
Yeah.
especially applying out to other organizations. That was always such a barrier. So having that and that resiliency through that time, and also going through some work challenges, things weren't always easy for me. I dealt with some really gross stuff at a company right
Yeah.
before the Me Too and stuff
Yeah.
that really made me think, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. And
Yeah.
it's just, yeah, working past those challenges to get into, actually helping make the decisions of talent at some of these organizations and how are we really bringing diverse talent to our companies
Yeah.
without it being a checkbox exercise. And so
Yeah.
that's really where I've spent the last few years is how do we do this with the right intention and the right way to do it and how do we make sure that we are being genuine the whole way through
100%.
um, because that's what it takes.
Yeah, it does. I want to point out something. You having been in that agency environment, for any of you that are listening, a recruitment agency is very much like being an entrepreneur. It's eat what you kill.
Mhm.
You bring it in, it's full commission. So in the same vein that those of us that own our own businesses, Jackie, and that's why I've brought her onto the show, is because she has that background and understanding of what it is like to have to truly earn every dollar and really be in that competitive space. And that's where we operate as female entrepreneurs. And so Jackie gets it, even though now she works inside of a larger organization here in Canada as a director of talent acquisition. She knows what it's like to have to really go out and hustle for every dollar. And that's what she's talking about here, is that makes a difference in the way she approaches this. I also think it's so cool that, there's a lot of spaces, there's a lot of conversations about DEI,
Mhm.
and it cannot be just a compliance exercise. It has to be meaningful. We need diverse people. And I'm not just talking about the color of your skin, right, Jackie? We're talking about diverse thoughts and perspectives. We're talking about workplaces that really believe that people should be treated equally and fairly, and
Mhm.
that we need to be inclusive because everybody comes to work every day with their
Mhm.
own bag of stuff. We
Mhm.
all do. We
Mhm.
all do. That's what you and I are really talking about. Yes, have I defined that properly?
Yeah, and I love what you said because it is everything that we touch is that inclusivity and that makeup, that not everything is again a specific group or we need to have a certain percentage of XYZ. I think that's
Yeah,
all important, but it's understanding that that could mean a lot of different things. It could mean people with abilities, or, again, specific to more female, versus it could be ageism. Like, there's so
Ah,
many components to this that people
yeah.
don't realize. But it's really, again, making sure that we are involved in the right activities to garner that talent. And so, for example, I was at the Business Pride Club with Haskeen 2 weeks ago, and it's really just about having conversation. And their theme this year was authenticity,
Mm,
and bringing your true self. And that is really what it comes down to, is the authenticity for people to be themselves. And
yeah,
that those special skills, that secret sauce, is something that is important for organizations, is who you are. A lot of people, and I did this for many, many years, tried to hide who I was
yeah.
because people wanted to box me into a category. I had a team that called me the Barbie recruiter, and this is before it was fashionable to be a Barbie. Like, this is before, you know, Margot Robbie paved the way, and that whole conversation around, the hardships we face as women, and the stereotypes that come with that, and that we can be more. But I had those challenges where I thought for many times, like, why can't I like fashion and makeup and hair and be into true crime podcasts, or,
That's a passion that
uh,
Jackie and I share. We
all
share
of that
true crime
stuff.
podcasts. We're junkies. It's ridiculous.
But also be a really great recruiter and business
Uh,
professional, and be,
yeah.
thought of as smart. And, I had an HR person, actually, the company that you and I worked at, say, it's too bad people don't know how intelligent Jackie is, with all these underlining things around what she perceived me to be, because of all that stuff I just named, the makeup, the hair, all of that stuff. She thought that people thought it was stupid. And I thought, oh my goodness, I couldn't imagine a world where I would say that about her, with those stereotypes that
Yeah.
maybe like. So anyways, it's just really interesting that we look at people, and we take those unique qualities, and we think, this is going to add to my business, this is going to add to my culture, this is what I need to be, again, yeah,
Yeah.
inclusive,
Yeah.
because it's not traditional. And sometimes we fall into those pitfalls as hiring managers. And trust me, I do a lot of manager education
Yeah.
around bias,
Yeah.
because we have it, we all do, we all
Yeah.
think it. But it's, how do you check yourself?
Yeah.
How do you say, hey,
Yeah.
I need to, I'm kind of being, an a-hole here, I need to check back,
You
right?
can
Like,
say it. It's a big bold podcast. Go ahead and say it.
through the rules, but
No,
yeah.
but I think that that's the truth. Like, we really just need to pause. And when I'm working with a client to design their recruitment strategy, and then we're talking about execution, and whether it's them doing the work, or they're including their team, or they have a general manager in their business, we always have that conversation about, okay, what is the bias we might be bringing to this process? What are the things in our own head that
Mhm.
may prevent us from finding someone who's really amazing that we would never have thought of? I also want to go back to your comment about authenticity,
Mhm.
because I actually think that that is a crucial part of our recruitment process. We need to be authentic as organizations, and I work with small ones, you work with larger ones. We need to show up authentically right from that job posting. Like, it needs to really be clear about who we are, the values that we have and why they're important, and culture, which is how we get work done together. That's what culture is. We need to put that right in the job posting. It needs to be threaded throughout our process so that people feel that. Like, it's a sensation, isn't it, Jackie?
Yeah, you're spot on, Lindsay, because, I had a conversation yesterday about job descriptions. And, again, candidates aren't, they're skimming it. Trust
Yeah.
me. They're going through, they're looking for they're looking for,
Yeah.
do I fit?
Yeah.
First off,
Yeah.
they really are. They're looking through those job responsibilities and saying, do I tick all the boxes? But it's the candidates that are then, getting those interviews, that are going back and really scrubbing out that job description. And the biggest thing that companies leave out is who they are, what they
Yeah.
do, what makes them special. What do you offer? Do you have something that makes your company unique? And that doesn't mean monetary. That means what's your culture like?
Yeah.
And for people right now, and especially in this job market, we still have COVID hangover. Let's be
Yeah.
honest. People are still figuring it out. We've got remote jobs being a huge criteria for people. So how do we discern that? If you have an in-office job, how are we getting people to say, hey, this is so great. You could leave your home and you will feel
Yeah.
empowered to do that.
Yeah.
But you have to show up and you need to show, but also you need to match that to your other talent brand. That's another part that is a really big part of my job is how are you showing up in everywhere else too? Is your mission statement the same as your website? Or do you have conflicting stuff
Yeah.
on? Like
Yeah.
I see that often where I'm like, oh, well, like you kind of said all this stuff, but your LinkedIn kind of says something totally different. So I think, now like job descriptions are coming a little bit irrelevant. So I think we have to be, again, talent brand.
Yeah.
That job description is going to feed somebody through, but you have to look at those other areas within
Yeah.
how you're showing up as a company. It's no longer just about, I can post a job and get people.
Totally. I had this conversation a couple weeks ago, like, because you mentioned talent brand. Now, for
Mhm.
a larger organization, that becomes increasingly important. For
Yeah,
smaller organizations, it's something that they need to think about, and that brand has to match up with who they are in the public space, like who your overall brand is,
yeah.
right? And it should be a reflection. And ultimately, if you think what we do is cool, you might want to work here is kind of the underlying pitch. And
Mhm.
vice versa. If you think what we do here is cool, you might want to be a client one. Like it should really be reciprocal in that way.
Mhm.
And in that, we are representing again our whole selves, our whole business, our whole culture to people. And I think you're right. Candidates are very savvy. They do their homework, Jackie. Yes.
Mhm.
They go
Yeah, they
do their
do.
research. This is not, you're right. A great job description, I think, is key, right? You got to have well articulated. But they're
Yeah.
looking at your website, they're looking at your Instagram, they're looking at your LinkedIn, they're looking at your TikTok, like, right? They're
They're
going
looking at
deep.
people too. A lot of people are going through and seeing like, do I see myself? Am
Yeah,
I represented? So I also think that people are very savvy where we have social media and it's, as much as it's sometimes a hellscape of,
mm,
apps, depending on which one, but candidates they're looking for, and am I, again, can I bring my authentic self to this organization
yeah,
and do I see myself? And if you're a really small business, you may not have that yet. But how are you showing up?
yeah,
And are you, showing, that's that one thing for me with talent brand, it's all about community. And I don't think people realize that more candidates are attracted to photos, like actual photos of you out in the community, whether that's at a Stampede breakfast or that's you, being on a panel or you volunteering. People are attracted to that because also people are looking for corporate responsibility, that social responsibility as well. So I think it's
yeah.
also, again, people seeing that and envisioning, how do I fit in here, and are those values align with mine?
I think, you know what? I think that's exactly it. Does this organization actually put its money where its mouth is? Big or
Mhm.
small? Big or
Yeah.
small? Do they, I think, in things like Google reviews, do I go to their Google page and there's a whole bunch of stuff here about how they don't serve clients? Do they
Mhm.
go to
Mhm.
Glassdoor and see previous employees that have written some less than stellar reviews? And we're all going to have that. Like employees leave and they're not always pleased, but like whether you're big or small, yes,
Mhm.
are you showing up on brand, as they say? But
Yeah.
are you living those values? Are you promoting that mission? And in a way that a potential candidate can actually identify and say, this is a place I think I would like to work.
Mm.
I think I will tell you, for a smaller business, what I have found is that the job description needs to be not only clear about who you are, but who you're looking for, right?
Mhm.
The right candidate for this role will do these things. They'll believe in this stuff. They'll act in this way. And I think that as a smaller business will help us build that recruitment brand in a meaningful, like, this is how we work. These are the things that are important to us. And when you match those two things up, especially for a small organization where you
Mhm.
don't have a big platform or a big audience,
Yeah.
that can be very helpful. That can be very helpful.
And the other thing too is like once you start to get if you have a LinkedIn page and you're active on there, and you're doing this stuff because it's all algorithm based, it's all
Yep,
keyword based,
yep.
and people are starting to reach out and inquire or connect with you, like actually take those serious. So as
Yeah.
somebody that's a director of talent, I will respond to those LinkedIn messages. I get a lot, and it can be overwhelming even for me because everybody, I just had someone yesterday, clearly didn't read my profile and said, "Hey, do you source engineers?" No, I've never sourced engineers in my entire career. Have I never touched an engineer? Um, I mean, when I say recruited, not touch, but it clearly didn't go to my profile. So
Yeah,
I could have ignored it. I could have said something really, snippy back.
yeah,
And I just said, "Hey, thanks so much for reaching out. It's really great to connect with you. That's not my
yeah,
specialization.
yeah.
Here's some tips that you can do if you're looking for that." I just don't specialize in that because people assume in recruitment, I do everything. I don't think people really understand that recruiting is not that I'm, you
No,
know,
they
again,
don't. They don't.
everything under the sun. But I think it's that kindness. Like you have to go
Yeah,
back and, like I had somebody that was really established in their career. And I was, probably, I think I was a team lead at the time, saw this person's aspirations and thought, oh my goodness, like I love her career journey.
yeah,
And we were going to the same conference in Dallas. This is before COVID in 2019. And I reached out to her on LinkedIn and I said, "Hey, I'm coming there too. I'm from the same city. I followed your career journey. I'm so excited to meet you. Would you have time to meet, go for a drink, grab a
yeah.
coffee while we're here?" Didn't respond to me.
Mhm. Yeah, that's tough.
And hey, could have gotten busy, blah, blah, blah. There's many, many.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
That's always stayed with me. And it's funny because
yep,
I saw that this person was looking for a job not that long ago. And I thought I could, help network them, blah, blah, blah. But that stayed with me.
yeah.
And I don't have a grudge, but I was really like, I
Well,
don't know.
you're a little more hesitant to help someone because
Um,
they weren't interested.
They weren't
So,
interested. And I mean, yeah, I went, two Calgary gals going to Dallas. That's awesome. But that to me was sort of like, again, kindness is a big piece of this. So when you have these people reaching out to you and you see things again, those biases, oh, they're not from here. They don't have this experience. Why are they reaching out? People, especially I find sometimes business owners think, what do they want? There's
yeah,
a
yeah,
guardedness that comes
yeah,
with that.
totally.
And take that shell off for a moment and think of that human connection that someone is reaching out, that they took time in their day to say, "Hey,
Yeah,
I'm interested in connecting." Whether you can help them or not, be kind, do your best to respond, do your best to help, and be honest if you can't. But just ignoring it or letting that, that also will go a long way with your candidates because they will remember those
yeah.
things as well.
You know what? I think that that is what a great story. So thank you for that. And what a great point. Um, there is nothing worse in the recruitment space than the silence that comes after someone sends a resume.
Mhm.
So think about that someone has put in the time and effort. Yes. To Jackie's point earlier, did they actually read the job description? Did they look at what we actually do? Or did they just fire off a resume? Let's assume the best intentions. Let's assume that they were sincere in thinking this might be a good place for them to work. Even if they're not a fit, you
Yeah.
need to respond. Now, it can be a lovely, simple email that you copy and paste Thank you so much for your application. We appreciate your time and effort. We're not going to be moving forward with you at this time. Best of luck. Copy, paste, send, copy, paste, send, copy, paste, send. People are always going to apply for your job that are not qualified. You put it out there, you got to expect some of that. And
Yeah.
I get business owners and leaders that say, well, it's so frustrating. Yes, I understand it's frustrating. It's very simple. And to Jackie's point, it's about being kind. And if kindness
Mhm.
is a value for you in your business, that's how you show up and use kindness. It just is
Yeah.
a way. And then when you're recruiting and you have to reject people, do it with kindness. Send them a quick note. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for the interview. We really
Yeah.
appreciated meeting you. We're not going to be moving forward with your application, but we wish you the best of luck and we're so glad we can stay
Mhm.
connected.
It's
Might not be
the
a
worst.
candidate, but they could be a client. So be
Right.
careful.
That's
Be
right.
very, very careful
Mhm.
how you treat people.
It's the worst part of my job is that
Yeah.
conversation, and it's broken my heart every time. I'm very much an empathetic person, but I will say too, you may have someone that you're like, huh, I like that. I like that experience. I just made an offer to someone. And a lot of people go, oh, well, moving on, go get my Starbucks, go blah, blah, blah. Reach out to that person, build your silver medalist candidates. I
Yeah.
can't stress this enough because we have no guarantees.
Yes.
I have recruited and hired people. I was like, they're amazing. Oh my goodness, they're the best candidate you will ever meet, and they're going to crush it. And they are dumpster fires. And we know
Yes, I've had those
honestly,
too.
what did I miss? Because even the most seasoned recruiters miss stuff
Yep.
because people are a volatile commodity and you just never know. And I have many stories around that if we ever want to go into that fun chat. But it's the silver medalist, and you can be super authentic with that and say, hey, I just want to let you know I've just filled this position,
Yeah.
but I really like this experience. I would love to keep in touch.
Yeah.
Do a coffee chat. If you want to take it a step further, meet them in person, but have them in your back pocket and actually have a place where you can put that resume, those details. If it's an Excel,
Yeah.
great. If it's something you
Yeah.
can do to have a records management, um, but have it, because the time to fill and the time is going to cost you money. It's a
Yeah.
cost to your business, not having those people there. So take those candidates and actually do something, because to your point, Lindsay, it's copy and paste, reject, reject, reject. What if you reject someone that you actually maybe would have considered? And
Totally.
then
Yeah.
somebody wins the lottery and they're no longer available for you and your company. Hey, you could have that filled a lot quicker if you actually have that where you can go and see again if that person's available.
I think that's great advice, especially for small business owners, because like a lot of my clients, Jackie, they aren't filling full-time permanent roles. Not right
Mhm.
away, right?
Mhm.
My larger clients that are in, high six figures moving into seven, yes, they have the payroll dollars and the volume of work. But a lot of my clients are hiring part-time, they're hiring consultants or contractors. And so I think that's an excellent point. You hire a contractor or consultant today and you think, yep, this person is the perfect fit. But you called it the silver medalist. I love that. So your silver medalist person, again, as your business grows, you keep that person in your back pocket. You keep the connection warm. You keep the conversation going. In fact, what you're doing is building your network, and then when you get that big project, when you land that big proposal, you have someone and you don't have to go to market. You don't have to spend 6 or 8 weeks working for someone.
Mhm.
You have someone you can call and say, are you interested? Are you available? Would love to work with you. And they say, yes, actually, I've always wanted to work with you. And it's a beautiful thing. So I think that that is absolutely genius advice.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. It's something that I think, even again in recruitment, professional recruiters don't do a good enough job with having
Yeah.
that, your lead gen, your leads that you have.
Yeah.
And also I would say, get your people involved in that. You
Yes.
busy, you can't meet. Maybe you have someone, maybe you have somebody part-time, they're a student, but they're really well networked. Or maybe they're working for you as a consultant. People know people.
Yeah.
We don't tap into that enough. And if you actually start to really get that word out, honestly, it is the power of the referral. It's people you know. I had a friend reach out. So this is another thing, a small business in Calgary. They're looking for someone, and she just sent me a note to say, "Hey, do you know anybody?" I'm not a need. I don't. There's nothing in it for me to
Yeah.
tap my network.
Yeah.
But I had two people, both laid off recently in Calgary,
Yeah.
looking for work. I went to them and said, "Hey, I don't know if you're interested in this. I don't really know much about the job. I'll get the job description. I'll pop it over to you
Yeah.
if you're interested." And then did that transaction because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
I'm busy. I have 1,000 things to do, but
Yeah.
hey, if I could help someone, and that really it's coming down to that, and I can tap into my network, and maybe it will work out, maybe it won't. But you know what? I know a lot of people who wouldn't do that. So it's going back to being authentic. It's the kindness, it's the empathy, it's the understanding. So you know that goes a long way.
Yeah, it does. Well, and I think in terms of, as entrepreneurs, we spend a lot of time investing in our network. And I put my hand up here. I mean, I get a lot of the work I do, a lot of the clients that I work with have come to me through my network, through referrals. And so the more we can foster that and think about how we use that in terms of our talent acquisition strategy, to use the fancy terms that Jackie and I use, but using our network, not only to find us talent, but to share that talent and promote that talent, that is us living our values personally and corporately. And I think that's crucial. I want to ask you a really, well, I'm going to use the word controversial. It's a bit of a controversial question. Salary in the job description, like the job posting or not? What do you think?
Well, I mean, depending on where you live, you may be required to. So there's
Yep.
BC transparency,
Yep.
which is actually so just another pro tip to anybody too. Like if you're looking at your competitors, and they're located in British Columbia and they have job postings, go check those out because you'll have an idea. Are you market competitive?
Yeah.
It's not that much difference between BC and Alberta, to be honest. And depending if you are outside of Alberta.
And there's
I
places in the US that work, like California requires it. There's other states in the US that require, like, more and more now than ever before, you have to post a salary range of some kind. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Ontario's
yes.
headed that way.
Yeah.
Alberta, like honestly, provincially, we will all be required because the government's starting to take a look at things like gender equality.
Yeah.
The province of BC, they are mandating reporting to make sure that you are hiring equitably
Yeah.
with gender, whether whatever you disclose, and you can disclose, if you're non-binary,
Huh.
etc. But I really think we're heading in a good direction with that because I've worked for organizations where there's pay transparency, and I think it's really important, and I love where we're headed, that it's there. But I would say if it's important for you, especially if it's maybe hourly,
Yeah.
and you want to cut down on the amount of applicants, I would put it in, or but if you're negotiable, or because a lot of people are around,
Huh.
well, they're only going to go for the top part, or most people will meet in the middle. If
Yeah.
you have a range and you're assessing that based on that experience and that skill set, you will be fair and equitable to that person. Candidates are just worried. They don't want to price themselves out. But you're not doing yourself any disservice by putting it in there,
Yeah.
especially if you feel like that is the biggest barrier when you get down to that offer and you're noticing that people are declining you. I would just reevaluate that, as
Yeah.
to why. There's things to look at that. But that could also be like, that will help with, a lot of people, again, I know things are expensive and we work to live, but I think a lot of people aren't necessarily looking for just that. But if they
Yes.
have an
Yes.
idea, you also want to make sure that you have, serious applicants, and that will help diminish how many people are.
Yeah.
Or again, you may have to disqualify people because, again, it's attractive to them, and it will increase the amount of applicants that you're getting. So
Yeah.
I think it's, but it really would be up to that individual business, but making sure that you're transparent and not, I think even a step more than that, talk about compensation in that first meeting, have an
Yeah.
open discussion.
Yeah.
People shy away from it, and that should never be a surprise. Like if you get down to that final interview, but I've had candidates really shy away because they're just afraid that they're going to jeopardize their chances if for instance they are outside of that range.
Yeah, totally. I encourage my clients when we're talking about how we want to run this process that a range is appropriate. You don't have to pick an exact dollar figure. So whether it's an hourly rate or a salary, and perhaps you're talking about the proration. I had a client last year that, we're going to start someone at an 80% um, equivalent and move them to 100 as the business grows. And that was something we built right into the job description, that this is not full time. This is 4 days a week. Here's the annual compensation that will be prorated. And we got some really high quality candidates. We did our research. I think that's the
Yeah,
other thing. You mentioned that. Do
yeah,
your research. You can figure out what is the market rate in your
hmm,
part of the world.
yeah,
You're talking about Canada. I work with clients across the US, even
mhm,
into Europe. Do your research. You can find out.
yeah,
There are places and spaces. If you need help with that, call me. And then, build a range that makes sense for your
yeah,
business because
hmm,
affordability is important.
yeah, and
Always build in increases, right?
total rewards. I think that's the
Total
other,
rewards.
because
Exactly.
it really is about the full package. And I was mentioning this to somebody yesterday, where you have to be able to give that, hey, what's in it for me?
Yeah.
People are looking what's in it for them. And
Yeah.
if it means benefits, RSPs, other perks, like do you do Fridays of long weekends off early? Do you get your birthday off? Like, there's other things that are part of that total rewards package. Put that in there because that also will enhance your job description as well.
100%. And as small businesses, we can't often offer some things that the bigger, especially in the US, a lot of my clients, they do not have the ability to offer a healthcare benefit plan. But what can you offer?
Yeah.
Some of them things aren't monetary. You can offer great flexibility. Maybe you do offer the ability to work remotely and
Mhm.
customize your hours around some core business times. Maybe you're a family friendly organization. And so you can make sure that there's accommodations for people that are parenting. Or, maybe there's an opportunity to offer people chances to learn and advance and grow. That's actually
Oh,
really important to a lot of candidates. They
yeah.
want to know that there's space to learn.
Yeah.
Make sure that you're mentioning those things because that is part of your total compensation package. And it's really crucial that you bring that to the front. Candidates
Mhm.
are looking for that, big and
Yeah.
small, right?
Absolutely. And as you're setting up those interviews, make sure you send along the job description as a confirmation. I think that also is a big piece of that, and that preparedness with your candidates. I think those are all things, again, if we're looking at the seriousness of applicants. Do they really know this job? Have they put in their time and their research? If you
Yeah.
include that job description, they can reference it back to you and you're having a really good two-way dialogue. That also will help you really determine if this person is somebody you'd like to move forward with as well.
Yeah. Well, and that's a great segue because I want to talk a little bit about the actual process. Because we've
Mhm.
talked about the front end piece, which is the
Yeah.
job description. We've talked about bringing your culture forward, but there's some technical pieces in here. This is what people don't realize about recruitment.
Yeah.
There's
Mhm.
actually real technical pieces and real skill involved in creating the right process and then executing it right, doing those interviews
Mhm.
really effectively, Jackie. Yes?
Yeah. I mean, it's essential because you can waste a lot of time if you
Yeah.
don't have a process. Like, I know a lot of managers who do not do any vetting, they don't do any pre-screening.
Yeah.
And then they're just meeting, the candidate blindly. They maybe glance at their resume And they know within 2 minutes, I'm
Yeah.
not going to move forward. So I think it's really important, if you want to do this right, to have a bit of that strategy in place.
100%. Yeah, don't waste anybody's time, yours or theirs. Make a phone
Exactly.
call. Make a phone call, have 4 or 5 questions, get to know them. Because
Yeah.
Jackie, I think you're right. I think we can talk to people for 15 or 20 minutes, ask them some great questions that pertain to the job description and their background and experience. We can assess pretty quickly if they're going to be right for the job and right for our organization, big or small. We can do that real quick. And then we're not spending time with someone that we don't need to be. And we're not wasting their time. Like, be kind to your candidates
Yeah,
again,
be
right?
kind to candidates. Exactly.
Yeah. And then I hear from people a lot, and this drives me nuts. Well, I'll just go to Chat GPT and it'll tell me the right interview questions to ask. Jackie's
Yeah.
laughing. This makes me insane because the
Yeah.
interview questions are so important.
Absolutely. I mean, if you have to use ChatGTP, use it smart and customize it to your business. I mean, there's ways you can use AI. I think the other thing that people are worried about is candidates using AI. And I actually had an experience recently where a candidate was using AI, and I could tell. So also know, so this is a really controversial thing too. Is like I
Yeah.
get a lot of feedback from managers saying, well, the person sounded really scripted. Do you
Yeah.
know how difficult it is to script an interview? You
It's
gotta be
really
like
difficult.
actor improv extraordinaire.
Yeah.
And so my call out to leaders is, don't assume. So if someone sound like is scripted, does that just mean that they're scripted, or were they prepared?
Yeah. Great,
Did they
great
do their
point.
research? Did they, because every interview has a theme. So candidates generally will know the types of questions you're going to ask: problem solving, teamwork, leadership, accountability, feedback, whatever it is that
Yeah.
you're asking. Candidates are, going to have, if they've
Yeah.
prepared, they're
Yeah.
going to have, and you should be using those, that, like using the SAR, the situation,
Yeah.
behavioral, so situation, action, result, to interview your candidates. So that's another thing, is ask them real world scenarios.
Yeah.
Ask them about X position and a time when, and
Yeah.
don't just talk in generalities or theoretics, because you will then at that point not know your candidate. But it's really hard to script an interview. And I hear that and I always say, well, were they just prepared, or
Yeah.
were they really good at describing what they
Yeah.
did? Don't let that be a deterrent, because I
Yeah.
see that all the time. And we decline a lot of people that because of that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think you said it. Really thinking about the best predictor of the way they're gonna behave in your business is how they behaved
Yeah.
previously.
Past
Not
experience.
just can they do we can establish from their resume, can they do the job?
Yeah.
What we wanna find out is, will they do a spectacular job? Will they really nail it for you? That's what the interview is about, and framing those questions around, tell me about a time when you've done this before. What did you do? How did you do it? How did it work out? They can't script for that.
Mhm. No.
Give me an example of when you led this kind of project or delivered this kind of thing. How did you do that? What was your thought process? How did you arrive at that destination? ChatGPT can't deliver that for
No.
you. It
No.
just can't. And so designing the right
Yeah.
questions that are
Mhm.
really speaking to what you're asking for in the job description is so critical.
Yeah,
So critical.
and probe. You,
And
you know,
probe.
it- and probe. Like, we take, the first answer, and sometimes, we feel, oh, I, don't want to waste this person's time, or I'm over,
Oh,
no, real, and this is your time.
yeah,
Um, and if you're feeling like you're left without getting what you wanted, just take a look back if you if you phrase the question properly too. Is it confusing?
yeah,
Sometimes, we
yeah,
do that, is we don't always ask the question very clear and concise, and the candidate's just confused.
yeah,
But you are in control of that interview. Just remember that. Like,
yeah.
bring it back, steer it back, like if it's going off topic. But yeah,
Yes,
I think that's a really important thing, is to actually have set questions, but ask it in a way where it's like indicative of past behavior.
100%. And keep it like keep it conversational. I always
Yeah,
say to my
yeah,
candidates, this is a conversation. I'm just going to ask a few more of the questions because you
yeah.
want people to be comfortable. And I think sometimes that's where they sound a bit scripted too. Like,
Mhm.
keeping in mind, everybody comes into these conversations really nervous. They want to perform well. They want this job. That's why they're in front of you. And we have to bring that into consideration, create a space where they feel really comfortable talking to you.
Absolutely.
You can be authentic. I'm sure you've seen this. People show up and they're very rigid. Well, that it permeates the conversation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or they've got 5 other people in the room now with them. Sometimes I've had, candidates, not expect that there's a panel interview. So
Yeah,
you
that's
as a
unfair. That's
leader, you
unfair. You gotta tell
set the
people.
stage. Like
You
you
gotta
need to tell people.
yeah.
It's the most unnatural thing if you think about it that we really do. Is it's performative. So it is not a natural thing.
No.
So ease into it. And for a lot of the leaders who might be listening, you may be doing this virtually.
Yeah,
Remember to set the stage, have the small talk. Yes, Lindsay, you're not physically in front of me, but
yeah,
before, we were talking about the weather and
yeah,
easing into this, and
yeah.
yay, it's finally here. We finally have nice weather. Lots of people just launch into this interview without any of those pros
Yes.
and that's also a thing is like relax.
Yeah.
You relax the candidate because sometimes hiring managers are nervous too, and people
Totally.
doing the interview are equally nervous, and then you're just bouncing off each other's nervous energy.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah,
Well, yeah, create some connection. You only get a couple hours to
mhm,
ascertain if this is the right person for the job and for your team, and especially in a small business, every team member counts.
yeah,
If you
absolutely.
only have 10 or 15 or 20 people, adding one more can make a big ripple.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
use your time wisely. And back to your original comment around authenticity. Show up the way you show up in your organization. That's what people want to hear. That's what they want to know about you. Jackie, I can't tell you how much I've appreciated this conversation today. It's been absolutely loaded with
Thank
great
you.
information. And I want to offer anybody who's listening, I've actually designed a rockstar recruitment workbook so that you can recruit the rockstar that you're looking for. And what I've done is outlined, in fact, some of the things that Jackie and I are talking about today. Not only the tools, like a great job description template, great
Mhm,
ideas for interview questions, but also the process, how you want to run this all the way from designing that job description through to onboarding, because we didn't even touch
mhm.
on
Touch on
how to
onboarding.
bring that
Yeah,
rockstar candidate into your business. That's a whole nother conversation, Jackie. We're gonna have to come
yeah,
back to that.
yeah.
But the workbook, we'll put the link in the show notes. You can download it and work through it so that you actually have some of these pieces at your fingertips as you're designing and executing an effective recruitment process. And of course, if you need any support in that, all you have to do is send me a note. Would be happy to support you and your small business in your recruitment process.
Yeah, the strategy that you've built, Lindsay, I think is just it's so important because you don't have to do it yourself.
No,
There's this great resource, this great tool that you can have. In our businesses, you always need to have a plan. Why wouldn't you have a plan for the people that you hire?
thank
So
you.
it's to me, it's just yeah, like
Yeah. Amen, sister. You got to have a plan for your
go
talent.
download it. Yeah,
100%. So this workbook is going to get you started so that you can actually do this recruitment process not only successfully but confidently, because that's part of it, right? We just don't know. This conversation today has gone a long way, Jackie, to helping all sorts of business leaders, again, big or small, understand why recruitment is going to play such a key role and how they can start to do that much more effectively, and then the workbook will give you the pieces you need, the tools and the templates to help you through that. So, Jackie, thank you so much. I'm just so glad to have this conversation with you today. I know we could go on for another hour. That
no, appreciate it.
yeah,
No, it's my pleasure. And I love what I do. I'm so fortunate to work for a company that empowers this and values diversity. And so it's what I love to do, honestly. It's it just gets me up every day, because you are changing a life, and you as
Yeah.
business owners can change somebody's life.
Yeah.
So
What a beautiful way to land it. Thank you,
thanks.
Jackie.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thanks, Lindsay.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Female Founder Unplugged podcast. I hope you enjoyed listening as much as I did hosting this conversation. I feel so lucky that I get to connect with such amazing female entrepreneurs. And if you enjoyed today's session, would you do me a big favor? Would you hit subscribe and give this episode a 5-star review? I'd also love it if you would share with your friends. We've got a goal here at the Female Founder Unplugged podcast to impact 1,000 female founders. And with your help, we can really amplify the message. Thanks again for being a part of the show. And don't forget to connect with me at highvoltageleadership.ca. We'll see you next week.